Hello everybody, and welcome to Get Your Brush On. And this is part 2 of the first two-parter episode of, hey, do you guys hear something? Boom! Ah! Hello everybody, Alicia, Dame of the Brush here, with another how-to video. This time I'm working on the Korn Cannon. As you can see, there are a couple parts missing, but we're going to cover those kind of with this. Now, I primed mine in black, as you can see, but you can prime it in like gray if you want to prime it in gray. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Fang here, and I'm going to cover pretty much all of the plates here. I'm not going to go into like the fleshy bits here, but I'm going to cover all the plates in the Fang. I do that by getting me a big brush and just getting me a good layer going on this. Now, it doesn't have to be a particularly thick layer, because we want it to be kind of dark. Sorry. I'm not trying to get in your way with a big old hand here. But all the plates need to get some good coverage. Now, don't worry too much about getting on some of the more detail stuff, because we'll go back and fix all that up with our detail brush. But just, like I said, just distribute the paint real good and even, and you know, get a good coat going. Alright, so now that we've got the Fang covering most of our model here, as you see, all the plates have got it on there. The next step on the plates is we're going to take out some of Dark Reaper and do a dry brush on those. And the way that you do a dry brush, for those of you that don't know, is you get some paint on the brush, you wipe a good amount of it off, and kind of just brush it on. You might need to go over some areas a few times to get the level that you want on there, but that's basically how you do a dry brush. It's kind of hard to tell. The Dark Reaper and the Fang are very similar paints. Now that the Dark Reaper's on, I'm going to pull out the Fenrisian Gray, and this time I'm just going to do a very, very kind of light, dry brushy highlight. Just like a normal dry brush, I wipe most of it off the brush. And then kind of pull some different areas out. Like brushing downward on this area right here, because it'll kind of highlight the top bits. Kind of just brushing here in the middle. of each one of the cannon edges. And I know this looks very kind of shockingly bright compared to the other two colors that we just did. But we're going to wash afterwards, and that's going to darken it all and make it look good. So you just kind of continue on with the rest of the, just like that. Alright, so now that we have all that nice highlight going on there, we're going to leave the skin plates for right now. And going to pull out some Caledor Sky. And this is going to be the base coat for our fleshy bits. Now, if you haven't figured it out already, this is not GW standard scale. This is a scale all my own. I'm just trying something a little different. And honestly, I think the blue will go very good with the orange blood letters that I showed you guys before. Now, you may be thinking, alright, Alicia, well, why didn't you just do the fleshy bits orange here, too, and just the plating blue? I'm like, well, that's a good question. I probably would have done that, but my husband has laid claim to all of the oranges in the house, and I couldn't get him to give them up to do the fleshy bits orange. So that being said, if you want to, you can utilize the method that I did for the blood letters on this fleshy bits here, instead of doing the blue that I'm going to do. But I think the blue looks already nice anyway, so, you know, to each its own. So all you do is just get the Caledor Sky on there. Don't worry about covering up the skulls or the silvery bits that are supposed to be silvery in there. Because we'll go back over them with another detailed brush color. So just get all the fleshy bits, that Caledor Sky. Alright, so we got our Caledor Sky all based on this. On all of the points where we got some fleshy bits. Let's see if I can get a good shot of up here in the mouth too. You can kind of get your brush in there and get inside in here too, and all the way back there in the back of the throat, you know, all that good stuff. Alright, so now that we got that based, I'm going to pull out some Teclis blue. And this is just going to be a general dry brush. On top of the Caledor Sky. See how nice that looks? And you just want to do that on all the rest of your fleshy bits. Alright, so now we've got the Teclis blue kind of dry brushed on top of all of our fleshy bits. I'm going to pull out the Lothern blue, and this time we're going to do a little bit more of a pinpoint highlight with just the Lothern. And do that, of course, you pull out your detail brush. And all I'm going to do is kind of just pull out the areas, the lines here. Let's go along each of those kind of lines in the flesh, like where they're kind of making holes and stuff like that. And you're just going to do that kind of throughout. Alright, now that we've finally finished our pinpoint highlight, as you can see, just kind of gone around each of the circles where it's kind of popped out. Along these ridges here, pulled all that out. And around the different kind of straps on in here. Alright, so now that that's done, it's time for our first wash. And we're going to wash the whole thing in Drakenhof Nightshade. When I say the whole thing, I'm talking the plates and the skin. All of it. It's all going to get washed in this Drakenhof. And my friend Skip was wanting to see somebody wash something, so here we go. Now, I'm getting it on my brush here, and I'm using a pretty good sized brush. And you see how it's kind of pulling like that? I don't want to pull that much right there. So I go back with my brush, I grab some more out of the areas where I don't want it pulling too terribly much. And I kind of rub it on kind of similarly to how you do, how you paint. I just make sure that I'm not wiping too much of it off in certain areas. You know, it all comes back to brush control. Because on the plus side, I mean, a lot of this it'll flow into the areas that you want it to flow into. But you know, if you don't want a truly dark wash, you can always go back and kind of soak up some of it. See how I put that back in? How dark that is? Put my brush there, and a lot of it's gone. See? You can kind of use the brush as a kind of de facto sponge to move it around. And the way that washing works a lot of the time is it depends on what you're washing is how you move your brush around. Like, see, right in here, I'm kind of dipping it, kind of blotting. That's because I want to make sure the wash makes it in there. But on the smooth surfaces, I'm more painting. And that's the difference. I hope that's helpful. Alright, so now that the Drakenhof Nightshade has dried, you can see that the outer plates are nice and dark now. And the flesh is still brighter than them. But now we're going to take some Guilliman blue glaze. And this is going to go on the fleshy bits. And the reason for this is it'll give it just a tiny bit of a shine. It'll make it, it'll keep that kind of nice, brighter kind of blue color that it has over the kind of dark matted finish of the plates, the armor plates. And you just want to put that on all of the flesh bits. Alright, so the Guilliman blue is pretty much dry at this point. I'm going to go ahead and move on. And we're going to do the gums. There are gums here, on the front here, bunch of gums on the cannon, and like the cannon mouth too. The first color we're going to use is Naggaroth Night. Because this thing's going to have purple gums. There. See? Just do all the gums with this. Now there's only gum line like right here on the cannon mouth. And the inside of the cannon right here, you're going to want to go all the way inside it and just paint the whole thing purple right in here. Alright, now that I've gotten the Naggaroth Night on the ring gum here, the gums on the teeth in the front, I even put it on the tongue. Got them on all the gum line teeth here on the cannon. And this inner ring here, and the inside of the cannon as well. This outer ring is actually metal, right here. So don't put it on the outer ring that looks kind of like a weird star. Anyway, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to highlight that Naggaroth Night with our first layer of Xereus purple. And all I'm doing is going around the gum, like so. There's still a thin line of the Naggaroth Night on the outermost edge there. And that's pretty much all that we're doing here. Is just doing the gum highlight with just a little bit of the Naggaroth still showing. And kind of the same on the tongue. As you can see, I left a little bit of Naggaroth like right there where it splits. And there's some taste buds on the interior. It's kind of hard to see with the camera, unfortunately. Let's see if I can get to adjust. Okay, you can kind of see the tongue, but unfortunately I can't get the light in there too. Let's see if I can. Alright, yeah. Kind of like right there. Anyway, take my word for it, there are taste buds on that tongue on the inside. So just kind of highlight in there best you can. Or, if you've got this at home, don't put the tongue in before you start. Alright, so now that we've gotten those highlighted again, I'm going to take out some Genestealer, and we're going to do the last little highlight. And very similarly to how we did the Xereus highlight, just going to go as close to the teeth as we can. And again, it doesn't matter if they get on the teeth, but because we haven't done the teeth yet. But there. So some Xereus is coming through. Some Genestealer. And the Naggaroth. And in here where there are taste buds on the tongue inside there. I know you can't see. But for those, all you do is just pull those individually out with the Genestealer. And that's all you have to do. Alright, so we got the Genestealer highlight on. So the next step is going to be, as you might have guessed something, washing all the purple bits. And of course we're going to wash the purple bits with some Druzy Violet. Just like so. See? And just wash all the purple bits just like that. Alright, so now we're going to move on to some metal. And the metal I'm going to use is Leadbelcher. And I'm just going to use this on the bolts here, like the big ones. Because all those little ones we're going to do with a different color later. Also, this thing right here is going to end up being done like that. The tires, front here, the back tire, this machinery right in here. That machine bar in there. You've got one peeking out of the flesh down there. right there too. These three, the eye, you know, just not the decorative. Like this stuff right here, that's decorative. Not doing it in the metal, in the Leadbelcher. All this lines up here, again, not doing it because decorative. I'm not gonna do it in Leadbelcher. I'm gonna do it in a different color. There's so much. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it and point it out after I'm finished. All right, so everything that gets to the Leadbelcher is right here. This assembly all inside here. Not this little piece right here, the piece that's got the skull on it, and the eyes, and teeth, and all that good stuff. That's going to be a different color. But the wheel, the assembly inside here, this little assembly right there, all the little bullet points right here, this one, these pipes right here, dots, eyeball, wheel, you know, all that good stuff. So the next thing after we get all that nice and squared away is, of course, we're going to wash all that metal with nun oil. Just like so. Alright, so now that all that nice metal has been doused in the nun oil to kind of bring out all that detail, we're going to go ahead and move on and pull out Balthasar Gold. And the Balthasar Gold is going to go on all those very fancy trim things, like these lines, these trim lines here on the cannon, you know, the trim lines are here around the fleshy skull bits. These arms right here, in fact, are going to be this Balthasar gold color. Not the skulls, though. The skulls we're going to keep the same. They're going to be actual skulls. Also, this nice big design here up at the top. Is going to be the Balthasar gold as well. And this design here on the back of the shield is going to be the Balthasar gold. The skulls that are right there, just like right there, and whatever you want to call this sucker right here. All of that is going to be in Balthasar gold. Alright, so now that we have all this lovely Balthasar gold applied, The next step is to pull out the Seraphim Sepia and go over all of Balthasar gold with it. And what this is going to do is it's going to pull out all those kind of details. It's going to darken it up. It's not going to be so bright and shiny. It's going to be just slightly worn looking after the Seraphim Sepia dries. Which is good, because I'm of the opinion that none of the demon stuff should be, you know, brand spanky new. It should all look worn and, you know, yucky looking. So it's going to take some time, but just be careful. Use a smaller detail brush to apply the wash to, you know, the smaller detail pieces. It's all about control. You don't want to get the Seraphim Sepia on anything else on the model. Just the Balthasar gold. Now that the Seraphim Sepia has had a chance to dry, as you can see, the Balthasar gold has darkened up quite considerably. And the next step on the gold pieces is to take out the Necron Compound. It's a dry paint. You take that out, and what we're going to do is we're just going to do a little bit of a dry brush on the Balthasar gold. And basically what this dry brush is accomplishing is the raised up edges are going to look more worn from this. Because with most metals that are colored in some way, the raised up part, like when it gets beat up or something like that, it always turns this kind of silver color. So that's essentially what we're accomplishing here. Get the light down a little bit further. See? And we're just going to do that with the rest of the areas as well. See? Alright, so now that the Necron Compound is done, as you can see, there's not a lot showing. It's mostly just on these open ridges here. And here. And in here. I went ahead and I also dry brushed some of the Necron Compound on top of some of the baser metal bits to give it just a little bit of a shine in certain areas, just like I just did with the Balthasar. So the next step is we're going to pull out Runefang steel. And what the Runefang steel is going to do is we're going to pull out all of those little bolts. So get a really good detail brush out for this part. And all we're going to do is put some Runefang on each of these bolts. And when I talk about each of these bolts, I'm talking about the whole thing. So this is going to take a while. This is a long step in this process, because I'm even talking about these here. Obviously, because as you can see, there are just an amazing amount of these all over this thing. So I'm definitely not going to show you all of this. Alright, so then we've got all of our bolts on this thing picked out with the Runefang. I've also gone into these arms here that hold up the skulls and made them Runefang, like just these little lines here to kind of break it up. The next thing that we're going to do is going to be all the teeth, the horns, and all that whatever. And the way that we're going to do that is going to be Zandri dust first off. Just like so. I just want all of them coated in the Zandri dust. Well, this was a really long step. As you can see, now we've got all the teeth, the horns jutting out, the skulls, these skulls right here, all the skulls inside here, you know, the whole works. Everything that's made of bone has now been Zandri dusted for all intents and purposes. Now the next part of this is just going to take an exceedingly long time to do as well, because there's so many bone parts. And they're going to pull out the Seraphim Sepia again, and I'm going to wash each and every one of these suckers right here. In the Seraphim Sepia to get them nice and darkened up. And you just do that with all of them. And of course, the skulls in here are a little bit more difficult to do because you don't want to get that Seraphim Sepia all in that nice blue flesh tone. So do your best to control where all that wash is going. Alright, so while that Seraphim Sepia is drying, let's shift gears for a moment and go to the back end here, where you may or may not be able to see these wires all coming out. So for these, I decided that I was going to make them the same color as like all the Nurgles demons that are in the army. Because for some reason, these things have boils on them. So I was like, well, why not? So because of that, I'm going to start off with some Castellan green. And I just want you to base pretty much the entire wire all the wires with the Castellan green. Now on this one we got 4 in the back, but there are also wires that can be seen on either side of the wheel casing back here. You can kind of see them a little bit better now that they're green. And up here, these 3 slots on either side are wire. So paint them green too. I noticed that I didn't paint all of it green. Just like here, where there's some open bits on the wire casing. I'm not painting the open bits green. There are open bits on the exposed wire on these things as well. Alright, so now that we've got that covered in the Castellan green, very similar, exactly similar to how we do the Nurgling flesh, well, the Plague Bearer flesh that I did for you on another video. We go with Loren Forrest next. Which is pretty much kind of like a thick, a little bit thicker, kind of dry brush, highlight. And you're just going to apply that to all the wiring. Just like so. Alright, so now that that's done, the next step that we're going to do is taking the Straken green, and this time we're just going to do a pinpoint highlight. And all this is just a line straight down. Just straight down it. Kind of how like the light would flow. Just a little bit. And with this one, it's just going to be just a little dab. On there. Okay. Alright, so now that the Straken green has been applied, the next step, for those of you that have watched my previous videos, is going to be Elysian green. And that is just going to get applied just like so. To all of these funky little pustules that are on wiring for some reason. Alright, so now the Elysian green has been applied to all these lovely little boils here. Gonna pull out the Ogryn Camo to add lovely little whiteheads, just like the plague toad and the rot fly and the plague bearer. There we go. See, just little whiteheads on top of those boils. Alright, so now that all those lovely little whiteheads have been applied, the last thing we're going to do to these wires is give them a good wash in Athonian Camo shade. Camo shade. And again, it's important to kind of maintain control of your washes here, because you don't want this green wash getting on like the blue of the plates or the metal pieces and tinting them green, because we just want the green on the wires. Alright, so getting back to the horns and teeth and skulls and everything. The next step is we're going to apply some Screaming Skull. Now the way that we're going to do that to the teeth and the horns and whatever is going to be a little bit different than what I've done previous. I'm going to attempt to show this to you. Basically, we're just going to do some lines, kind of going down, and all meeting like kind of in this at this horn, this tip here. So you can kind of see that I haven't really covered anything like down here. I left all that nice and dark, but I've gotten all this up here covered. And that's pretty much the same thing that we want to do with all of the teeth. Every last one of them. And because this is going to take such a long process, I'm going to do all the teeth first, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to do the skulls. Alright, so now that I got all the teeth finished, I'm going to come and try and show you how to do the skulls with the Screaming Skull paint. Just like I did the teeth. Basically, it's just kind of a highlight layer. So as you can see, you can still see some of the darker bone underneath. As far as the skull up here goes, kind of the same sort of highlight layer here, but I'm leaving the horns as is. Kind of as a, hey, in life these weren't going to be covered in flesh, so they're not going to be as bleached as the rest of it. Alright, so now that the skulls have had a chance to get a little highlight on them, we're going to jump back to the wiring now that the wash has been dried. And as you can see, there's some exposed areas like right here. Where like the skin of the wire has been peeled off and it's just like coiled wire in there. So I'm going to take some Wild Rider Red, very similar to how I do the eyes on these. I'm going to just kind of fill the holes with the Wild Rider. And just do that with all of the holes in the wiring. Alright, so in addition to putting the Wild Rider Red on the holes in the wiring, I've also applied it to the inside of the grill on this plate here. It's hard to see from right here, but there's also like some grilling in this piston behind it. And I also applied it to the eyes in the skulls. Basically, I imagine that this is mostly the engine body of the Korn Cannon, so it having some glowing energy kind of radiating outward, not uncommon. which is the exact reason why I had the Wild Rider Red applied to the holes in the wiring as well, so you can kind of see that glowing emanation coming in from it. And as far as like the eyes of the skull, it's on the side here, well, I've had all my demons have that same kind of glowing eyes, so residual demon energy from the skulls that are mounted on the cannon. Why not? So, next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply some Towlight Ochre. And the way that this is going to get applied is simply... Let me find a good spot here. Alright, right there. That's not a bad spot. Just my camera. There we go. See how, like, there's just lines of coils within the wire? Well, what I'm going to do is just stripe it with the towel. Because I filled it with the Wild Rider Red, it's got plenty of glow red behind it. But that way I can kind of pull out those lines radiating outward. As for the whole eyes in the skull thing, just kind of dot inside there, and this glowing energy here, just little lines on the inside is all I want to do. Just like that. Alright. Now that we have applied the Towlight Ochre, we're going to let that dry for a little bit. Moving on to all of those pustules that we've got on there. So, grab out the Nurgles Rot and focus. There we go. Just apply the Nurgles Rot to all those lovely pustules on the wiring. Alright, so now that we have gotten the Nurgles Rot on all those pustules and given the Towlight Ochre a moment to dry, I'm going to pull out the Bloodletter Glaze and go over the holes in the wire. With it. And also the grating here. Oop. And the eyeballs. Alright, so now that the bloodletter's drying on all of that, you may have noticed that there are a couple of rings right here and one on the other side. Now with those, I wanted to do those a little bit different color so they'd stand out. So I'm actually going to pull out the Auric Armour Gold. Now of course if you think this is too bright, you can do yours a different color, but I think that this just adds just a little bit of pizzazz. And just like that. So at this point you must be thinking, hey, we're done. Well, we're almost done. In fact, you can skip this next step if you really don't want to do it, but I am going to do it. So the last step is I'm going to highlight the teeth, like the teeth in the skulls one more time I'm going to punch it up to, you know, the 9th degree with some Scar White. And the way that I'm going to do that focus. Is similarly to how I applied the Screaming Skull. I'm going to wish my white paint was a little bit less congealed. Just start at the tip and work the way down. But not going to the level of covering, you know, all of the Screaming Skull up. Basically, I want a nice white clear point on the teeth, kind of fading into that dark color at the bottom. That's what we're going for. Now, as far as highlighting the skulls go, it's fairly similar to how we did it before. It's just kind of eyebrow ridge and edge. Teeth more than anything. A little stripe down the skull here. And just kind of edging. That's all we're doing. Alright, so I've got all of those skulls and teeth all nice and bright, shiny. So let's go ahead and finish off the eyeballs in the skull with some Flash Glitz Yellow. Just boop, boop. It's kind of hard to see. Trust me, they're in there. Alright. So, that's it. I'm done. Alright, so there you have it. Now, this doesn't look as good as it possibly could because I had to kind of put some pieces on there with some sticky tack just to kind of show you what it looks like completed, demons and all. See, so the orange demons do work with this. There you go. I hope everybody liked this two-part tutorial on how to paint the Korn Cannon. Any questions or comments, just do them below. Any models you want me to try and paint, I'll give it my best to try and get my hands on them. If you want me to do a commission for you, that can always be arranged. Email's at the bottom. See you next time.